I am so thrilled today to welcome yet again a woman that I cannot get enough of, intimacy and relationship coach, Marga Berlinski. Now, welcome, Marga. And for
Thank
those
you.
who have not yet had the chance to listen to any of our previous episodes, can I ask you to start by sharing a little bit about who you are and what brought you to be doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so thank you, Julie. It's always so much fun connecting with you. So my name is Marga Berlinski. I'm in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and I'm an intimacy and a relationship coach. So what I do is I work with couples to enhance their intimate life, to explore what is, how can they keep that passion in their relationship, but I also work with single people when it comes to dating, for example, or to really find that expression, that sensual expression that feels good to them. And that covers several things. So it's dating, it's expressing what you want, how do you communicate? And basically, for me, I am passionate about people being able to intimately connect with each other in any
Right.
area of life, by the way. It's not limited to
And how
sexual.
did you get started? How did you become this?
I really came from an own place of need and desire. Like I've been working in the personal growth and development field for over 15 years now. And I've done a lot of different trainings and things that were not related to intimacy, but to personal development. And then about 9 years ago, I kind of had to confront this area of intimacy, sexuality wasn't working for me. And having done all the work I did, I was like, yeah, I could kind of pretend it's not there. However, I was also knowing like, no, I want to create something for myself that's very fulfilling for me. And so that's why I started to do my own inquiry and my workshops to do myself, and the world opened up for me. And out of that, I got so connected. I was like, oh, this is really fun. Having being free and able to create the things I want in life, in my intimate life. But also, yeah, the healing I experienced through these processes, I was like, wow, I want to expand that into my coaching practices. So that's how I.
Well, I'm really grateful. I mean, the reason why I have you so often on the show is that I do have the feeling that it is an aspect, in particular for women, everything around intimacy, sexuality, it's still very taboo, and it's still an area where, we're talking about a 50+ audience, where after years, you'd think that we'd sort of got over ourselves or got ourselves out of the equation, but it's not. There's a lot of ingrained. And when you do manage to break free from it, the liberation and the warmth, the happiness, the sort of alignment that you discover is truly impressive. And that's why I'm always happy to have you here. Now, I loved your title because, you've taken a slightly different angle here. So Beyond the Bedroom, a journey to authentic intimacy. And I thought, yeah, you're right. Because I mean, Martha and I are both in a big women empowerment network. And each time it's her turn, when she says, what she does, so intimacy and sexuality and all of that, I'm always like, ooh la la, as if we're about to do something very exciting. Whereas intimacy is beyond that, right? And that's what you're here to talk about with us today, Marga. So why did you choose this topic?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. I was at a couple of events and people then, I shared about some of the more deeper emotional work that I do for people to get freed up in the area of intimacy. And somebody came to me and she said, I had no idea you were working with all this emotional stuff. I was like, it's interesting. Yeah, right. Automatically, when I say intimacy, relationship coach, sexuality, people think like, oh, sex. Oh,
right.
Spice up your sex life. Oh, you get all the funny techniques. Oh, you play with all the toys. It's like, well, hold on. That is part of that, maybe, if that's your thing. But there is there's a depth of work underneath that and a foundation you need to have to create that level of openness, intimacy, and trust between you and your partner and yourself to create a kind of intimacy. So
as you say, it almost starts with self, right? Because how can we be intimate with someone else if we don't know ourselves?
Exactly that. So then I was like, yeah, I actually want to bring some attention to, we can have talks about the toys and the techniques, and that's all fun. However, I want to bring attention to that aspect of, all right, well, but how do we actually create a space of intimacy? And from there, you can create whatever fun you like, but there's actually a basis of intimacy that goes beyond the bedroom.
So if I first asked you, maybe even define, what does intimacy mean to you?
Yeah, so for me, intimacy is really an experience of, there's two things. You're present here and being connected So you're actually being seen.
That's true. Yeah.
And you're seeing the other person. So intimacy is actually a moment of connection, being here with everything, right? So intimacy can be found in a simple look, when we just exchange a look and we're experiencing that connection. Or it's when I share something vulnerable. And because I share something real and vulnerable for myself, the other person in front of me opens up and has an opportunity to be vulnerable as well. Or I do share this spicy desire and I feel all the nerves running through my body and I share it anyway, right? That is also intimacy. So it ranges from experiencing connection to, you could even say penetrative sex, but it's a whole world, an experience of being connected.
And it's giving something at that moment, I suppose, to a person, something which is really genuinely you. It's a bit like having, sex with lots of people, or you share a different part of you during sex with the person who counts the most, sort of thing. I mean, I'm not saying about having lots, but just the idea that you're giving a part of yourself, which perhaps you don't give to everyone all the time, to make it feel special at that one moment in time.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes you can have lots of sex, but it's not intimate.
Right, that's exactly what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
you said it a lot
right.
better.
So
that's exactly what I was trying to say.
And intimacy is not per se sex, and
yes,
intimacy and sex can go really well together, right? It's like
and it's not a physical thing, is it? Because I mean, you can have, as you said, sex with lots of people without feeling intimate. I think it's intimate when you of yourself open up something or give something that you're not giving in the other relationships. But what I do like, and I have never actually thought of it like that, is that it is the present moment. It is that actual connection, to be intimate, as you said, just that look in the eyes at that moment, that person, the entire focus. You're not doing shopping lists in the background or listening to a film or whatever. You're literally seeing, hearing, and being with that person. That's a beautiful definition.
Yeah.
So how do you do that with your clients?
Yeah, whenever I start working with people, we start to look, okay, where are your challenges, right? What is it? Because, people often come with me with questions, and they want to expand what they can have in their intimate connections. I always start to look, all right, what's happening right now when you're intimate? Are you actually making shopping lists in the back of your mind, right? I used to be a person like that. When I would be intimate, I would get in my head and I would just think of 100 other things except for what was happening in the moment. And
I think women have a big problem with that. Men, I've understood less so. They're more physical with their sex. But I think us, and indeed, we cannot really experience that pleasure while we're
in your head. You're not here. How can you feel when you're distracted, right? But man, I work with couples as well. I recently worked with a beautiful couple, and he was so in his head. He was, and men deal with a slightly different flavor at times, like a performance issue.
Yes,
where they're so putting pressure on themselves to perform in a certain way that also takes all the joy away. So it starts with, okay, what is happening already? Like let's just like lovingly look at what's going on right now, and that's where we start.
But with both of them at the same time, or you see people separately?
I mix. So if I work with a couple, I sometimes do some individual sessions to kind of get a sense of how they work for themselves. They can sometimes share some things a little bit more openly. They might not feel as safe to express with their partner there. And then we come together and then we do the work. And that's,
I mean, that is so beautiful, but it's also so neat because I'm thinking, okay, 50 plus, right? So you have usually two categories. Either you have those who've been married for quite a while, right? With or without children. So children might have also distracted a bit from the intimacy. And often there's the feeling, I mean, I remember some parts of that myself as well, is that for so long you've not talked about those things, it feels a bit like, well, it's not suddenly now, after 20 years of marriage that I'm going to say, well, actually, I don't like that at all. And I don't like this. And, I wish we would do this. So there's that point, is how do you suddenly open the topic? And it becomes a bit taboo after a while. I find also for couples with children, I've heard that it's mostly men who then change their attitude towards their women and see them, as either they've experienced the birth and they're either put off, or that they, on the contrary, see them as, holy beings, the mother of my children, not the one you're going to have all this kinky Kama Sutra business. But I know, and I know for a fact that for some women, it's the other way around as well, where they actually find it hard to detach from the mother-father role.
Yeah.
Or then you have the second category, and sadly there are more and more of those nowadays, of which I'm one, who have separated from the father of their children and the person they were with 25 years, and who then have a new partner, but where you can then start from scratch, doing it completely differently with total honesty.
Yeah.
And so those people are maybe more easy to get to, talk about this. I mean, how do you proceed with a couple who've been together for 20 years?
Yeah, I often tell them, you're going to learn a new language, right? It's like, you speak a different language, just, also in the dynamics between men and women, or the certain energy dynamics I work with. It's like, you probably just consider you're speaking a different language, and you need to learn to understand each other. So that means slowing down and listening, and kind of listening and looking from, well, what is actually my partner saying and meaning by that? And in that slowing down, you bring attention to what your partner is saying, but you also kind of bring an attention to, okay, but what is the chatter in my head about? Right? So you need to get present to, oh, my partner is saying something. How does it actually land for me? And because we're often giving automatic reactions to what the other said. For example, when I work with a couple, like, she would say something and he would react, but they would be, they would talk about the thing that was said, but underneath,
they weren't actually listening. They were basing it on previous conversations.
There was a different thing communicated. There was actually an emotional request that he didn't respond on, but on the surface, there was some kind of cognitive thing happening. They were kind of chatting with each other, but actually, I even said, oh, let me provide some subtitles. All right, let's slow down, because I don't think you're hearing each other. You're speaking different language. I think this is what's being said on this side, and then on that side, and then, and then they could connect, because they could drop into like, oh, but what was actually being communicated versus what was being said. So that has a lot to do with slowing down and starting to hear what is being said. Either what is the little voice in your head saying, or what is my partner actually communicating?
And also probably being completely open, because the problem also after 20 years or so together is there's a lot of assumptions. You're not listening to the person, you're just basing it on, what they said, 20 years ago. And so you're not actually listening. And then it's very hard to change. It's very hard to say, but okay, maybe I was guilty of that, but have you not noticed that recently? But it's very beautiful, because what you're saying is, it is all about connection. And I believe that that meaningful connection with someone is what grounds us on earth and makes life worthwhile. So so you help them cultivate relationships, but so is it always couples that you see, or what about people alone?
I work with single people as well. Definitely. And then we'll do kind of similar work. Obviously, we can focus on the relationship dynamic, but we'll definitely look at, okay, what is automatically there for you when you connect with people? Are you actually open? I work with this other lady. She was so great. She was like, I'm so open for a relationship. It doesn't seem to happen. And then we started to look, and she discovered she had closed her heart off. And then she was like, what? I didn't realize how much on guard I was.
She was going through the moves because she wanted it for other reasons, but she wasn't ready.
Yes. And now we're kind of slowing down, taking one step back, and actually dealing with, oh, what happened? What was the heartbreak, or what was the heart close? And then that's another, layer of work to do. And from then, okay, well, now the trust starts to happen. If you start to open up, you will also get different experiences your way. For example, I work with single people like that too. Or, in dating, what happens when you see this person? I can make it to the third date, but it then seems to stop the whole time. It's like, I can't get past the third date. Like, okay, good. Like, all right, great. Not a problem. Let's have a look. And just kind of start inquiring about, okay, there must be something recurring here then. And so it's like, before we can get to the, this is not about a great pickup line. I always say that I'm not going to give you strategies. There is no pickup line. This is about actually authentically connecting with the other and being available. The one can walk by, but if you're not there and available, how can you then create that relationship? So that's...
And again, you're creating that safe space for them to see, because we're very quick to blame, right? Oh, there are no real men out there anymore. Oh, all men are bastards. Or, oh, they only want sex. Or, oh, they only want this. But if stuff is recurring, and if we're not managing to to attract, there's enough people out there who are dying to have a meaningful relationship, both
Yes.
men and women. I know so many of all ages who would give anything to just find someone, with whom they're good. There doesn't have to be this top model whatsoever, but somebody they can share life with, laugh with, have dinners with, help each other through life.
Yeah, and I understand it too, right? Shit, and to say it really bluntly, shit happens in life and it hurts. So I really understand why we sometimes stop being open or have to protect ourselves. And then, so I have so much love and compassion for that. And it's not working for you if it gets in the way of actually connecting again. So then we need to look, can we become vulnerable again? And what is needed so you can trust yourself managing and navigating that, because that is a lot of the work I do. You need to start regaining that trust that, oh, when life comes my way and things happen, great or bad, I can navigate and manage that. I can
exactly, because we'll never manage to control everything. So it's just knowing that we have the ability to cope whatever comes our way. But also I was thinking, because of course what you're saying about, previous hurts and then the mechanisms that we've had to survive. So of course, closing ourselves down, the older you are, probably the more of those you've had.
You bet.
Yes, so the deeper it's ingrained, but also our self-belief about ourselves as well. I'm still surprised that at our age, I'm 56, so many women around me, and including myself as well, we're still working on loving ourselves.
Yes.
And how can you be intimate and give yourself to someone if you don't like yourself in the first place?
Yeah, that's a lot of things I do as well. Like that self-image, that self-love is so important. And connect back that and let go of old pains.
I am so glad you're sharing that today, because indeed you do cover a whole broad array of things, whether it's from kinky sex to you have these orgasmic meditations which are truly amazing. You do that sort of thing, but also I've witnessed you in a few of our workshops as well, also connecting women with their desires. And last time you did a beautiful exercise where she was just asking us, what is it that we want, and we paired off in twos and saying, what would you like, and then saying thank you, what do you truly desire, and then saying thank you. And it got quite emotional, didn't it? You could see the number of women who were not used to first of all being asked or to even realize that they have desires. We put ourselves often last. So I'm very grateful for what you do. We'll make sure that we share also for people who feel like, well, gosh, I'd love to actually take it that step further and really learn how to connect and be authentic, or who want to, truly be there with their partner, or who realize that, the two of them could do with having a little bit of let's learn a new language together, because that's also a beautiful way to keep a relationship alive, to work on that. But so yes, you coach online and in person?
Yes, both ways. Yeah.
Okay,
and I do also in-person workshops in the Netherlands. So online or in person is all available. Yeah.
So before I ask you the tips, tell them a little bit what your orgasmic meditations are.
Okay, well, there's different practices I teach. Okay, besides the speaking together and the looking, okay, what are the habits and the mechanisms? So that is part of the work. And another part is several practices that I teach, because I always think, well, you can only think so much, the body needs to experience, and you need to kind of learn to experience. So there's different things. There's some tantric practices that I do that connect to the body, and there's an awareness you develop. Orgasmic meditation is a practice that I teach that I'm passionate about. It's also bringing a mindfulness to the intimate experience and connecting to your body. Then you said, kink and BDSM is a fun world to play in. It's like it's a different kind of practice. So there's just I have experienced a lot of different things, and then I will look together like, okay, what could support you? What are your interests? So it's a mix.
It's beautiful that you say that. And also because, all the rest becomes even better when there is that connection, right?
Yeah.
So it actually all comes down to intimacy when we come to it.
Yeah, totally. And communication, right? That's it.
Yeah.
I'll say intimacy is created in communication. And then the playfulness that can arise from that, right? That you have the basic of intimacy and connection, and then you can start to play. So developing a sense of being playful, is also very important. I think it's a skill. And over time, and especially when we get older, we kind of tend to lose that playfulness. We become very serious and significant in life. So, doing the work, I recently worked with a man who was so beautiful. He actually said, I'd like to learn to play again. And so, we practiced around that.
That's right.
how can you play?
And taking all the seriousness away, right? That's when you truly discover. I suppose that's when you're curious and you're open, just like children, you're playing and there's no thought as in, oh, it's got to be like this, it's got to be that, like that. And I agree. And I think, I remember once you were also saying about flirting, flirt with anything, flirt with the dog. It's more a way of feeling about yourself, which makes everything shine and fun. And then that's also when we attract people. I remember in my in-between period where I was having a lot of fun, I was a bit like, my goodness, I couldn't stop them coming, but it was because I was having fun. I wasn't set out there to find the next partner or whatever. Right. Now, what tips do you have? What tips would you have to share with the listeners today about creating that intimacy and connection?
And we touched upon them through our conversation. So the first one I would say is learn to slow down and listen. Just start paying attention to, oh, I already want to say the next thing, or, oh, I'm already making conclusions, or, oh, they look at me a certain way. That must mean la-di-da-di-da. So, all right, take a breath. Start to learn to slow down and listen so you become present.
Right.
That's a whole...
And so both people need to do, I mean, is it the idea that we do this together, or we just start ourselves and then see if we can actually share it with our partner?
Yeah, I would say start for yourself for sure, and also have that conversation. Like you could say, like, you know what, I want to practice a couple of things. And you can always start with sharing something vulnerable about yourself. You could say like, oh, I noticed I'm not always been listening as well as I would like it to. I've been distracted when you speak to me, and I want to practice actually being here. So if you see me being distracted, you can actually say, hey, are you here? Right? Or I'm going to practice, bringing myself back, and I will acknowledge that, like, oh, I was distracted, I'm here again. So you could actually bring that kind of intention already into the conversation. But for sure, practice yourself. You can practice it at any moment. Be like, oh, I sometimes write a note for myself. I stick it next to my computer, like, slow down. And like, I see it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Take a deep breath in. I'm here. Right? So that's also give yourself reminders.
Yes. The vulnerability is also a good one, right? Because how can we connect to someone if all the barriers are up, as you're saying? We're all vulnerable about little things, big things. And we think that other people know how we work, especially after a long time. But it's not really true. And obviously, we don't often express our vulnerability as vulnerability. I mean, I was absolutely a champion of hiding vulnerability behind aggression. So I would always say, to my partners or my children, etc., if I get suddenly very mad, look for the pain. I'm not saying it justifies being mad and lashing out at people, but it's, if you have the feeling that I'm suddenly randomly reacting in a very aggressive or angry way, you can be sure that somehow something that you have done or said without meaning to has hurt me. And I haven't yet learned how to say that and say, okay, this is how I felt. But that is what, that vulnerability. And the third one?
Yeah, that's a playfulness.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So bring that, start playing, find new ways to play. Can be, small things. How can you brush your teeth with your different hand? Right? It's so silly, but like, all right, just try mixing things up a bit. This is not about being childish. It's about how can I play what's coming at me with my life? Like, how can I change certain things? Kind of to shake yourself up a bit and bringing a lightheartedness to things.
And then you break out the autopilot as well, don't you? If you're doing something in a different way, suddenly you're aware, right? The stuff you do on autopilot, you don't even know what you're doing. Sometimes we drive somewhere, I'm a bit like, I have no idea how I got. Becoming more aware. And that playfulness, I think, is so true in intimacy as well. If you can laugh about yourself, about things, it just makes it so less hard on men. And I do think that indeed we often underestimate, because maybe I find female sexuality is maybe a little bit more complicated than men, but we do underestimate the pressure they're under. It was only when I had my own sons that I start to realize, gosh, how scary it must be, vis-a-vis a woman. Okay, well, I mean, this is really, really strong stuff. So tell us a bit. So the name of your company?
My name of my company is Turn On the Netherlands.
Right, fantastic topic.
Yeah, good. And so my website is turnonnl.com. We'll provide the links with this podcast, right, Julie?
Exactly, we definitely will.
Yeah, and you can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. Or send me an email at info@turnonnl.com.
You help people of all ages, all genders, all sexual affiliations.
So I work with adults, so it's with either you're in a relationship or in you're single age. In that sense, I work with the oldest lady I work with, what, 80, I think. Right, so it was so
fantastic that at 80 you want to improve your intimacy.
It was very beautiful. It was very beautiful. So, and we did exactly that, right? We looked at, okay, what's the vulnerability? How can you soften up and actually be available? So
and some people have never, especially I dare say that group, back then, I mean, even if we're talking about sexuality, first of all, girls don't talk about sexuality, and secondly, it's not really important that a woman should have pleasure or not, as long as she, produces a child or whatsoever. So I think it must be extremely liberating if at 80, you suddenly embrace a whole new world. And why not? We can have pleasure at every age, right?
Yes,
we're not perished goods or something after 50 or whatever.
Please, no, what a boring.
I would say, on the contrary, it only gets better, because also maybe you do become more intimate with your own body, etc. Now, just one last question. How do you suggest? I'm thinking, okay, a couple indeed who's been together for a long time, maybe they've had children, maybe they've not been that close, life has got on, so they're together, they're relatively happy, maybe not feeling very fulfilled. And then I also experience a lot of people where then the children leave home, and then there's a bit of like, oh gosh, do I know you? Do I like you? How do you start this conversation? Because I know a few of my friends have said, well, yes, but how do I suddenly say to somebody that I've been with for 25, 30 years, let's discuss, or let's open up, or how do you suggest?
Well, and it is a vulnerable thing to do. You're, in a sense, you're taking a risk over the little comfort zone you've created together. So it starts first with the willingness to get out of that comfort zone. It's that the authenticity and the vulnerability, that's where you start. So you always talk about your own experience. We're not going to blame or say anything, but it can also be like, no, I have been thinking about this and this, and I desire, I noticed I'm not experiencing always the intimate connection that, that we maybe used to have, or that I know we can have between us.
Right.
Can we have a conversation about it? Or I would like to have a conversation about it to kind of explore, to create that intimacy together.
Right.
What is that like? What do you think? Like, kind of, it's an invitation.
Yeah. And you can make it fun. You can make it like a date night, right? We have a nice bottle of wine or something. It's all about opening up, and it brings so much. It really does. I mean, for the people listening, I really think that, it's always work. We change, our partners change, or we change partners as well. There's all of those things which come up, but that intimacy, and first of all, for those who are single, maybe indeed looking more at ourselves and the pattern, but with the help of somebody like you who can ask the right questions, because we know who we are, or we think we do, and we've asked ourselves whatever questions we were happy asking ourselves, but often it takes someone else to hold up the mirror for us to realize and, to fully embrace this period of our lives, because I do believe that intimacy and sexuality are extremely enjoyable as we progress in age. We might be less supple, there might be less, exotic places, but then who knows? Who knows? It's an adventure, right? It's a discovery.
I love that, adventure and discovery. If you have that mindset of kind of, adventure and discovery and playfulness, you can keep discovering and exploring and having fun together. And, I created with my partner, our intimacy will get better every year.
Right.
And we don't have a plan per se, like, what needs to happen.
It's a mindset, though, isn't it?
It's a mindset, exactly. And then how do we keep the spark?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I'm going to write that one down too. I love all these things you say, and I like the intimacy is created in communication. And I love one of the sentences that you said in your notes to me. We were talking about diving into what intimacy in our relationship is, and we were talking about the bedroom, that we're not just spicing up the bedroom, we're igniting the entire house. So there we are. I believe that people who feel fulfilled in that area, we do brighten up everything around us and ignite, our house, our friends, our family, our environment, and the world around. And I think we can all do with a lot of that in the world at the moment. So Marga, thank you very, very much. Good luck with your mission. You turn on the Netherlands, you're going to be turning on the whole world, I hope.
Yes.
And I hope to help you promote that too. Do look in the show notes. Do contact Marga for her very many webinars, workshops. She always has something going on. And maybe give yourself indeed for 2024 the gift of really going and discovering who you are and what intimacy means for you. Right. Thank you all very much, Marga. Take care and speak to you all this time next week.